hard and soft games.
Look at him throwing back to the last episode. Where the f*** did Legion go? I looked away for a second and he's gone. And I don't know if he should got blurred.
By the way, you looked away for well more than a second. You haven't been paying attention for hours. I was reading about district courts again. In a country I don't live in.
It's fascinating, though. Every man's got a hobby, and mine is. All right, homeboys, I am ready.
Ready. Ready and prepped.
Why has he made it weird?
Coming in hot.
Oh, crap.
Before we begin, the Gamer's Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AMKomnenos, Banana, and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Gamer's Advocate podcast. We are joined with AMKomnenos, the hot and ready and always spicy AMKomnenos, and BananaHammockRepublic.
I'm also here.
Myself, Legion. We're going to be talking about some of the games that we really, really enjoy and obviously we've become addicted to, and that's kind of going to be our feature for today.
Yeah, so games that I become addicted to. I don't really replay many games. I've mentioned them many times, so it's hard for me to say there's many games I've become really addicted to. But I'm going to look to one of the only games that I play and replay, and actually just played it again last weekend. Dark Souls 3. I don't think it's my favorite Soulsborne game, but I think it's the best Soulsborne game. My favorite Soulsborne game is Bloodborne, but it's tinged ever so slightly with that sense of nostalgia because it was the first game from that series that I played. So it's always got that slight nostalgia glow that just bumps it up ever so slightly. And with that slight nostalgia glow, I think of it equally as fondly as I think of Dark Souls 3, which means Dark Souls 3 must be a little bit better because it doesn't have that nostalgia glow. So, Dark Souls 3 is my favorite. I think it's the best version of combat that they've done in Soulsborne. I'm not counting Sekiro in this. Sekiro combat, I think, might be better, but it's special. It's different in some ways, not the same system. I think Dark Souls 3 is their best combat. I think it's the best level design. I think it's the most interesting story. It's got my favorite bosses in the series. I can't really think of many bad bosses in the game. Going all the way through, just starting from the beginning. I adore Gundyr. I think Vort is a great boss. I think the Corrupted Tree thing is a great boss. Going through, I think Pontiff Sullivan is a great boss. I think that Hiking Volney is a cool boss. Just all the way through, they're just boss after boss after boss where I think, yeah, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. And there's never a moment in Dark Souls 3 when I think, oh, this bit, which I do have in Bloodborne, where I don't like. I think it's I forgot the name of the jail. I don't like that area so much. Dark Souls 1, I don't like the entire last third of the game very much. Elden Ring, I don't like large parts of the game, just purely because of how big the game is. I think some of the highest points of the series are in that game. But Dark Souls 3, for me, just from start to finish, I'm just in every time. I love every area, I like every enemy, even on the way to the Abyss Watchers, even that swamp. It's the first swamp in Dark Souls I don't despise. So my addiction game, Dark Souls 3, and it's been a few years and I played it last weekend, so I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. But yeah, there's something Miyazaki always has with adding swamp areas into his games, and generally I find them absolutely insufferable. But there's something about the Dark Souls 3 one that I still love it.
The Swamp of Gloom.
Swamp of Sadness.
Swamp of Sadness.
Swamp of Sadness.
Insert generational trauma here.
Atreyu.
If you didn't cut that in, that's going to be lame.
Yeah.
It's going to be us continuing to talk. No cut it. For me, Slay the Spire. I don't know if either of you have played it. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a roguelike, card-based kind of dungeon crawler game. And it's a lot of fun. It's heavily random number generator based, which, roguelike. But it has the Steam Workshop integration, and some people have put together some really impressive mods for that. So I was a big fan of the base game and then started exploring I think it's called Downfall, which is a mod that basically allows you to play as the villain and kind of work your way backwards through the dungeon, and is a really interesting kind of game mode that expands on the basic functions of the game really well. And it's just the fact that it's different every time means it never really gets stale. So I've probably put way more hours into that game than a healthy person would, because I've done Ascension 20 on all 4 of the main characters, as well as the 5th character you get with the Downfall mod, and then unlocked everything that you get playing as the villain characters. And I think there's 8 of those, so I've done a lot.
I think it's one of the games that I've seen people routinely get addicted to. I've definitely seen Momus get addicted to it. I've seen Lou get addicted to it. I've got another buddy who you can assume when they sign into Steam, they're signing into play Slay the Spire. It's one of those games that seems to get its hooks into people. For myself, I didn't like it. I don't know what it was. I generally don't like card games, with some exceptions. So I think for me, there was that immediate barrier to entry. But I feel as though for anyone who can either step past that or who is into those kind of games, it looks like it's that one. It's the one that just gets its claws in and holds on to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Calm says he doesn't like card games, so I try to get him to play Inscription. He's like, it's a card game. I'm like, it's not a card game. I know it appears that way.
It absolutely is a card game.
It is.
But it's pretty good.
But it's also not a card game. But yeah. Mm-hmm. If I'm going by pure hours alone, I was thinking of that, how I would do my criteria, but I would say that from before Steam probably is where addiction really came in, and it was the game that titled, just one more turn, and that was Civilization, specifically Civ 2. And then I can't tell you how many hours, just hours upon hours of loading a random map, seeing where that took me, and then just kind of exploring the trees. Maybe I wanted to go more literature based route at first, or maybe I wanted to go more agriculture route at first, and it was just one of those that I just had so much depth behind just even the first step. The first step you take could take you this way or that way. You don't know what factions you're playing against, and they could have a totally different way of, maybe they're more militaristic. You had to play balanced, because at the end of the day, you could be the most cultural society, but you're going to get overtaken if you don't play your cards right. So that was, I think, the first addiction I had was Civilization. And I probably have a lot more hours than that than my Steam would probably show, because since I've had Steam, I haven't really gotten into the Civ 5, 6, Civ 6 and things like that. So
I think it's interesting that we look at those games there. I think you two have probably hit on something that's going to be more common, which is you've both hit upon experiences that have that, not sandbox, but they have that very open-ended approach to them. Slay the Spire, there's particularly with the modding community, there's all different ways to play it. Civ, it's very much built into the game, which path do you want to take, which society do you want to play as, and then in the more modern ones as well, I think you even have within societies, which leader do you want to play as. So you have all these different approaches to the game, which I think is quite interesting the way it stands out from my choice of Dark Souls 3, which is by its definition, it's such a defined experience every single time. And you've got some choice, but it basically amounts to Cathedral of the Deep first or Abyss Watchers first. There's not a huge amount of variety there. I think it's quite interesting that that's the kind of games that we lent into, and they're so different in that regard. And that's why my next one is probably much more similar to the ones that you just put out there. My classic addiction, and like Legion, it's going to be a pre-Steam one. My Steam account wouldn't show this. I didn't have Steam at the time. Football Manager, which, like Civilization, it's just a game that can offer you a whole world in front of you. And if you go back to Football Manager 2006, 2007, which is my sort of golden era of Football Manager, it was just the right time. I was at university, had the time in the world. It was when I was most into football at the time. It was when I knew the most about the footballing world, the footballing players, when I was most interested in tactics, when I was still playing. It was the perfect game. And it builds a world for you. A whole world that you can sit in, and you can develop these players. You can see what happens to these wonder kids who you've seen in real life. Do they make it? Do they not? You can see these alternative stories for legendary figures in real life. You can bring Maybe you had a player who, when they were 23, they looked amazing, then their career fell off. Or maybe now with Football Manager, you can kind of give them a glorious end to their career by bringing them back into the fold. Maybe you want to try and develop some brand new tactical system to try and change the game. It was the perfect sandbox game. And I'm not sure any sport has ever quite hit a simulation or management game quite as good as that. There have been other simulation and management games, but I think none of them have ever hit quite the feeling the Football Manager or prior to that Championship Manager hit. There are other great sport action games, but not that simulation side. I think that's special. And if I went back and looked at how many hours I spent in that game, I couldn't begin to tell you, not least because when you're 15 years into a save, playing on a laptop in 2006, you push end turn, which moves your clock forward by, morning to afternoon. It's a 4-minute wait for the game database to set up. I used to have my notebook for my history notes on my right-hand side. I'd just be pushing spacebar every 5 minutes to jump the clock forward, write some notes, push spacebar, write some notes. So many hours. And I will never forget being denied a place in the Champions League final with Napoli, with a penalty in the 91st minute that the commentary said was a dive. Oh, still feel it to this day.
See, I was just about to ask you your favorite franchise. I was going to guess 49ers or the Bears, but not that football, huh?
Banana? Eagles.
So
Eagles.
Legion actually kind of reminded me of what I guess would be kind of my first gaming addiction, which was Warcraft 3. And we've kind of talked about this one before. I wasn't a huge fan of like the traditional gameplay of Warcraft 3. I enjoyed that, but I never really invested in that to get good enough to make that like the way I would play the game. My experience with Warcraft 3 in the online community was playing tower defenses, and those were kind of in that same vein as Dark Souls 3. They're always the same experience in terms of what you're up against, but how you choose to build to counter that is where the variability comes in. And I played dozens of those tower defense maps solo to like figure out great strategies and to make sure that like when I went into the online community, I was not the weak link, because online communities are toxic. And there were definitely quite a few that I got really good at, to the point that my gamer tag appeared as beta tester on a few of them, and people would ask me to look at their maps to kind of look for those meta strategies and figure out if the balancing needed rework. And I just spent hours and hours and hours playing really the same core mechanics over and over and over again. But I don't remember that ever getting stale. I just remember like, oh, let's try choosing this faction, and then maybe we'll try one single tower that does high damage and splash, or maybe we'll build a little maze and do a lot of chip damage over the course of a long period where the enemy is exposed to my towers. I definitely remember experimenting a lot with that game and really enjoying the experience of trying to strategize and build a solid defense.
Yeah, Warcraft 3 I never really got into because it introduced the heroes, and I was so used to playing more tactical in the original Orcs versus Humans and Warcraft 2. And when you played online, it's a very toxic. I was probably one of those that you didn't want to encounter, because I was going to win. But the thing is about that type of combat was that it's very, very really straightforward. It's just build your resources up, attack the enemy. And then when they introduced the leaders, I was like, Jesus, this is another aspect. Like, it's going to be this like little ace in the hole. Like, I'm going to bring all my guys, and he's like, in my head, like their leaders were going to like one shot me or something. I was like, I don't like this, like I can't build tactics around a move or something. So I never really got into Warcraft 3. I like the story, but I only did the story. I never did any of the online stuff for it. Unlike who is the tactics master of Warcraft 3.
I feel like I'm being mocked.
No.
I'd be in the original XCOM though, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I would have beaten the original XCOM if the game didn't crash and revert my save like 6 hours.
Yeah, you got to beat that too.
Well, I had a lot of hours in Roller Coaster Tycoon, but I wasn't really vested into it very much. I mean, I did it just to do. I liked other games like Sim Golf, believe it or not, Sid Meier's Sim Golf. He made one for the. It's just kind of neat, you know. Players would kind of play the course, and the course would. You could add bunkers, you could add this or that. It was fairly straightforward, but you had an open sandbox to do whatever you wanted with that. But it wasn't until Planet Coaster came around that I started to really find my love of putting pieces together and integrating a park and creating a whole theme behind just pieces. Because the nice thing about Planet Coaster is that you can just, you know, lay down rides. They have manufactured ones that are already made in blueprints and stuff. And you can just put them down and go to town with that if you want to. You can also itemize everything. You can take every single track, make it go do this, do that. You can bend it if you need to. You can stretch it out. You can have pathways. You can have it go underground. You can kind of just terraform the park however you want to. And then the shops themselves, you can create a shop. So if you have a vendor or something like that, they can have a stand there, but then you can build an entire shop around it. And so you can have an entire theme park customized to your creative methods. And so for me, you know, I kind of like the idea of being able to create your own scene, create your own aesthetic. And if it looks horrible, that's on me. But you do have the option, like I said, in that game to just simply use the assets that they give you and just have fun with it. But I'm more of the customizer. I want the waterfalls going in a certain direction with a river underneath with you going over the bridge. And like, I need more. I want fishes in my pond too. You know, I want like everything. But the game definitely has certain limitations to it. And it wasn't until Planet Zoo that I was able to kind of incorporate certain things like visualizations, like with the animals and stuff, because I knew about these tricks that I could do in Planet Coaster. So if you just have like a glass wall and you have, I don't know, like an underwater, like seals or something, I don't know, then you couldn't really see very well. But if you did it a certain way, but that takes a long time of understanding how light works in that particular program. And so it was, what I liked about it was that it's letting you experiment. I think Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo are definitely credits to Frontier and the commitment to making a game series like that that's caters both to the regular player who just wants to fire up a amusement park simulator and those who want to customize one.
As a balance, it can be difficult to strike, I think, for a dev sometimes, because they feel almost like very separate goals. Is how can we make the game be accessible for someone to just come in and play Park Simulator? They just want to build a park, sell some tickets, yada, yada, yada. And how do we cater for the person who really wants to create their park from scratch, every last detail, and so on and so forth? And it feels as though there's such different goals that you might, by leaning too much into the one, accidentally sort of take away from the experience of the other, or leave people as though they're not getting the full experience of the game by only going down that one path. So I think it's an interesting challenge for a developer, and based upon what I've heard from you, which is my only experience with the games, it's an impressive thing to have managed to succeed with, to make a game that caters to both of those two audiences in a genuinely satisfying way.
I've got like 2,500 hours total between. It's only like 700, I think, in Planet Zoo, but still.
As Monster Hunter players call it, nothing. So for me, the next one, I'm kind of tied between a few because I've got a lot of games that I've played for very, very similar amounts. And I'm going to go with Mountain Blade Warband, but specifically the first 15 hours of Mountain Blade Warband. I think a lot of games suffer from the longer you play them, the worse they get. or the more overwhelming they get, the less interesting they become. When I play Crusader Kings, I like starting off as a duke, but by the time I'm starting to become a king or an emperor, I've lost interest because there's too much stuff to deal with I don't care about anymore. And I feel like I've lost my tie to the story I was creating in the first place. It starts to feel like I'm playing a video game and not being a duke in this world. I find Mount & Blade Warband has the same problem. I find it really fun starting off from scratch as this one idiot running around with a stick trying to get a few villagers on their side, seeing those first few villagers level up and getting your first veterans of men-at-arms, getting your first archers, getting your first crossbowmen. But then after about 25, 30 fights, when you've started to establish now and you've got a handful of like the highest level knights that you can have, well, they can't upgrade anymore now. So I don't really know where to go with them anymore. And not only can they not upgrade anymore now, but they're also way too powerful for me to do the thing I like to do, which is hunting down the bandits and doing these little side tasks. So now I've got to join an army. But now when I go and join an army, I don't feel like the master of my story anymore. Now I'm working underneath some king, or I'm working underneath some other duke and being dragged around fighting battles I don't really want to fight. And it feels like there's this awkward midpoint in the game where you're too big to just be this roaming, marauding son of a gun, but you're too small to break off and sort of start your own kingdom or anything like that. And that point for me tends to hit about 15, 20 hours in. But the first 15 hours is so good. It's so good. And I can do that forever. I can just play that game. I can play that first 15 hours again and again and again and again and again. New characters, new styles, starting off in one kingdom, starting off in another, deciding it's only archers this time, and I'm going to be running through, hitting everyone else with a stick. You know, just always trying to play in different ways. I'm only going to compete in tournaments, going to play as some like roaming knight. When it's a sandbox of you playing as just a low-level knight, it's an amazing, amazing sandbox. It just suffers from that mid-game. But that's not what I'm addicted to. I'm addicted to that first 10, 15 hours.
And I'm interested to see where like games like Manor Lords takes that, because it would be very interesting, because your peasants in the village that you are making are your army. So if you have like an army of 20 and you have, 35 villagers, 20 of them are your army. And so you're not going to have those resources anymore as you pull them to go defend or attack something. And would be kind of interesting to start seeing if you can't name them and they have certain characteristics. That gets into like the whole like, oh, I just sent Fred to be captain. He's not ready to be captain.
Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite things is a complete tangent, but I'm just going to say it quickly because it was going to be my other choice, was Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
Every soldier in your army, Metal Gear Solid 5, has a name. But when you send them off to war, it doesn't show you the names. It just tells you that you're going on a mission, you're sending 10 soldiers, you've got a 95% chance of winning, you've got a 10% chance of one dying, and you become the person you don't want to be, as you just think, yeah, I'll send them off, it's worth the risk because I want those plants. And I love it. It's so masterful that just as a sort of meta commentary on the game, that you are becoming this careless, heartless individual who does love his individual soldiers, but when he sees them as a collective, doesn't really care about them anymore and is happy to send them off to their deaths. Sorry, you just pulled me into that world.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then you play Revengeance just for the palate cleanser.
There is no palate cleanser. There is only Metal Gear Solid on loop. Except for 4, which I can't access anymore.
I think I also have quite a few games that popped into my head and just kind of representing games I've sunk a lot of hours to. Things like Baldur's Gate, just any game in the series, I've sunk a lot of hours into. But the next one I think I would have to pick is one that I've come back to whenever I've needed a game for a long stream where I know I'm going to be playing for hours and I have a game that I can just continuously grind away at, and it's Mario 64. So when I've done like charity streams and things along those lines, I've committed to playing Mario 64, and I've just sat down and played the whole 120 stars. And I think it took me about 7 hours the first time I played it, and I just kind of sat there and played for 7 hours, taking occasional breaks to get snacks or drinks or whatever. And then remember doing another long stream shortly afterwards, and I was like, I don't know what to play. I'll play Mario 64 again. It's a game that I can weirdly just always go back to, even though it is, when you think about it, it's relatively repetitive because of the limitations of the cartridge system. They had to reuse the levels over and over again. So you go back to the same arena and do a different mission to collect a different star, but you're in the same environment. And there's minor changes here and there. And then I'll go back and replay the entire game. Like, that's addiction. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah, that sounds problematic. It's strange, isn't it? I find oftentimes, from my perspective at least, the games that I do tend to find the most repeatable, they are games that are very repetitive in many ways. So the ones I mentioned so far, Football Manager, I suppose, isn't. Ultimately, you could say, yes, it's just a Football Manager football season. Yeah, in that sense, it's repetitive. But in that sense, every game in the world is repetitive because every game has a gameplay loop. Dark Souls 3 is very repetitive, but I know I'm going to love it every single time. Man & Blade Warband, the way I play it, is very repetitive, and I'm going to love it every single time. So you can have this sort of secondary class of, or the second class of games that you become massively addicted to. And in a way, their limited nature is a bonus. It's not that you like it despite the fact that the gameplay is limited and the areas are limited. It's probably what brings you back. That is probably what you love about it, because it can feel like such a safe gaming space. And in your situation, if you're doing something like a longer stream, like you say, and you've got a stream for 5 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever, well, sometimes I don't want to play Alien Isolation. Sometimes I just want to be somewhere that I know and feels good. And a limited game, probably better for that.
Yeah. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name.
I guarantee he's glad you came.
I told my wife for years when I was playing the Witcher series that it didn't feel like a game to me. It always felt like work. So I was always working hard to play that game.
Witcher 1 is work.
Well, for sure. And I have to give some context to that. And when I say like work, I mean like the game was hard to run or whatever like that, because I know what you're saying with the Witcher 1. That's for sure. But I meant like when you're doing the signs, you're having to think of everything, and you're, like you said before, I think, that when you think like a Witcher, the game is much better. And once you start playing it in that style, and I think the developers really went into the mindset of, we don't want to alienate just an RPG with our construction of this story. They integrated what the story was into an RPG. That's probably a better description. So you're using signs, you're using potions, you're using flasks or whatever in the situation that would be probably the most appropriate. Now, could you just fight everything with a sword? Sure. But it's going to be much easier if you took the time to understand the, not just the mechanics, but who you're fighting against and their weaknesses, and maybe the queen. I forget the name of those creatures, but they're in like The Witcher 2, but she's got a really big thorax abdomen that she keeps showing, and you're like, there's got to be a reason here, and that's her only vulnerable spot. You have to kind of keep in mind with certain encounters that you have and what would be the most appropriate thing to do there. So I tend to gravitate toward Axii. Axii's not used that much in a lot of playthroughs I've seen, but it's your way of manipulating a lot of people to either be on your side or to just cause them to pause. And it is a game breaker. Once you know how to use that effectively, you're basically taking control of the battlefield. And Quinn, of course, you do the shield, the barrier. The Igni is just straight DPS, but the Axii is the great like neutralizer of everything on the battlefield. So for me, when I was playing Witcher, it was hard for me to say that was a game that really compelled me to continue to want to play, but I found that I kept going back to it because the more I understood, the more I wanted to go back into it, the more I felt enriched by the gameplay. And so it's one of those, like, it's a slow burn, but once it hits, it's a raging fire. I can play right now Witcher 3 without the UI. I don't need a map. I don't need anything. I know where everything is.
It's a game without the UI.
Yeah. It's very similar to like my Mass Effect. Like I sometimes forget like the run sometimes. Some games I have it shift, sometimes it's the space bars. Like sometimes get those confused. But with Witcher and Mass Effect, things like that, I don't really need a UI. I know where all my hot buttons are. I know where all my keys are. I could obviously do it without it. And so Witcher 3 without that UI and all that other stuff, it's just a totally different experience once you get to that point though. But the game lets you figure that out on your own. But once you do, to me, like I said, it was work getting to that point. But now it's just like, I feel like a veteran playing that game now. It really feels good.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I'm going to do one more each. So I was tied between two. So I'll tell you the one that I didn't pick. It was going to be my COVID game, which was Fall Guys. Not Death Stranding. Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Fall Guys was my big COVID game that probably put the most hours into. I think Death Stranding was the more meaningful experience, but Fall Guys just like pure time. It was perfect. Most addictive game, the game I kept going back to. It's one of the few games where I've played it more than once. I actually played it 3 times fully all the way through. Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4. It is and I haven't played Spider-Man 2 yet, so I can't speak anything about that. It is the perfect superhero game. It is a game where you actually feel like said hero in question, but said hero in question isn't so insanely outlandishly capable that playing as them feels uncanny or unfun. I think if you could play an Iron Man game and you were given all of Iron Man's powers and all of Iron Man's abilities, you'd feel probably a bit too strong and it wouldn't feel quite right. I find that when I play as Batman, I feel a bit too much like I'm a rich oligarch beaten down on street level crime, which is exactly what's happening, and it feels unpleasant to play at a certain point. Spider-Man, there's Spider-Man, there's something special about playing as just that kid who feels they feel graceful, but they don't feel overpowered. Having their concerns and their worries popping up like in their social life during the game, I think is really, really enjoyable. But the main thing is you can always put that game in and web swing for 20 minutes because they got the web swinging right, which is all that matters. And it's such a unique way of moving. I think that doesn't work with Iron Man. Iron Man, it would be cool to fly around for a while, but at some point you're just flying around. The Hulk, it'd be cool to do the big jumps once in a while, I guess, but at some point you're just kind of jumping around. Web swinging is different. Setting up that line, every single building that you go past, and following that arc and trying to just come out of that arc at just the right moment. Doing your little shortcuts, like when you web zip to things, and then continuing through the little stunt tricks, like webbing underneath the water towers on buildings. They just get the feel right. And it's one of those games where it feels good to play in the sense that Dave the Diver feels good to use the harpoon. In the sense that Hollow Knight feels good to parry. The thing with Spider-Man, it's every time you throw up a damn zip, it feels good. And you're doing that every 2 seconds. All the way through the game.
Yeah. I think that's one of those mechanics in game that is mindless, but requires just enough engagement for you to enjoy it every time.
Yeah.
And
it's very...
that's one of those things that's like, it's difficult to think of that in game design where it's like, how do you build something that is routine but keeps the player engaged enough to just be like, oh, I have to hit this, the timing just on the releasing the web at the pinnacle of my arc so I can maintain maximum momentum. And to the point that you might have players doing nothing else but just swinging through the city because this is kind of fun.
Yep.
I'm moving real fast.
and that's exactly it. Is if you don't get it just right, it doesn't matter. You come out at the wrong point of the arc, whatever, it's fine. You just launch up another web and 2 seconds later you try again. You're still moving. You're just not moving quite as fast. It doesn't feel quite as good, that's all. And oddly enough, that's one of the things I think Death Stranding does really well, is the movement feels really good moving around the world. But I'm afraid to say there's levels to that game. There's levels to it. And walking around feeling good is one thing. Web zipping through a city and feeling good, different thing entirely. Yeah. So yeah, Spider-Man for me, I can always go back and play.
Now the walking around in Death Stranding is okay. I wouldn't say it feels good. It's okay. especially in a
Chance
BT.
you'll run into Die Hard, man.
Yeah. Yeah, if you run into a BT and it's like, I've been playing this game for hours, I know these controls, why won't it let me jump on this building? I hate that.
Oh, let me say skill issue. Please let me say skill issue.
You know, he's just like, I'm like, come on. This is stupid. So
It's never happened to me, Banana.
I'm gonna have to stream the last few hours of Death Stranding just so y'all can.
Dreams.
I love that idea.
It's just a cutscene.
Picking up like with 2 hours left in Death Stranding, like the worst way to stream the game.
No, you don't know this game, so that's what I'm saying. It's probably the only time you should actually see this game. You shouldn't see all the struggle between.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, my last game, I guess, kind of falls in that same sweet spot where it's kind of mindless in the gameplay loop, just enough engagement for me to enjoy myself, but I'm not worried about, there's no real like risk of failure. I'm not really too concerned with the idea of success in the game. And for me, it's Warriors Orochi 3. So if anybody has played any of the like Dynasty Warriors or anything in that series, you'll know it's that absurd, 1 versus a billion kind of gameplay where you play as kind of a heroic figure in Japanese history typically, or some of these are in mythology or just kind of a fantasy environment, and you just wipe out armies as a single person. And for Warriors Orochi 3 specifically, for the achievement hunting in that game, you had to sink in hundreds of hours. Because one of the achievements is getting the mystical weapon for every character, and there's like 192 playable characters or something absurd like that. And I have the platinum for Warriors Orochi 3. I've done it. It's ridiculous. I've sunk all the hours into that game, and I definitely remember quite a few times where I was just going through and leveling characters up and playing that gauntlet mode where you're just navigating through these arenas, fighting hordes of enemies and looking for that purple little circle on the ground that can turn every enemy into this huge experience boost. And you're like, oh, I can't wait. I'm really excited for that moment where I can activate that little circle and then hit the kill everything button. And suddenly my character levels up 400 times. And that like weird satisfaction you get from such a mindless little like loop of, well, I'm gonna go through, we're gonna look for that little purple circle, and when it finally works together where a series of enemies spawn in right as you're activating that, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be a really satisfying, very productive leveling up loop. It's so stupid, but it's so rewarding.
Oh, I can't tell you how many like flashbacks I just had of Dynasty Warriors 3. Just playing that, and I guess it's the same way that basically you mow down normal people to like get like a bit of experience and some health and stuff, and then there's probably generals or something, and you've got to go and fight them, and you beat them to progress through the map. Oh, so many hours playing as Zhao Hudun, I think his name was, and he'd lost his eye. He gets like shot through, and he eats his own eye on the battlefield or something, just something ridiculous, But oh, it's so wonderful to play. So wonderful. It feels so good. It's satisfying. It's quick. I mean, how long does a mission take normally? Like anything between like 5 and 30 minutes, depending on how like the kind of speed you're playing at. And you're right, when you used to, I think it was hit circle in Dynasty Warriors as well, when you got your Muzo bar charged up.
Yep.
Oh, and like a 12-second mega attack, you clear the room. Yes. Take me back. I change my answers. They're all Dynasty Warriors 3 now.
Yeah. And that was exactly it. I remember, I think the character's name is Jutai. And it's that classic anime where his sword is sheathed. You hit circle, and then just slashes appear across the screen. He's not really even moving. It's the too fast for the eye to capture, and you just see it hit like slashes everywhere, and then in the circle around you are just corpses. There's nothing left. And then out of all of those corpses, little experience scrolls appear and rocket towards you, and you're like, yep, I went from level 2 to level 99. Crushed it.
Time.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I started thinking about the because these are supposed to be our games that we were most addicted to, not necessarily our favorite games of all time. They could also be that, but I think when I started thinking about it, I thought, well, Diablo definitely checks that box, because every time I played it, I wanted to replay it, and there was something else. There was a different person I could play as in Diablo 1 versus Diablo 2. Diablo 2 has a lot more options. You could play as a druid, you could play as a necromancer, you could play as a barbarian or paladin, whatever. And then the things you find really unlock a gameplay style that you may not have even done, even though you played the same type of class before. However, I think really though, even though I played a lot of the Diablo series, I think Titan Quest really did a one-up on it. And I enjoyed the original Titan Quest so much. I probably have a lot more hours, if I think about it, in Titan Quest, the original one, versus Diablo 1 or 2, because it was just done so well. It's basically the same game, just with a lot more options in it. And I just thought it was better in many, many ways. For someone who's played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of Diablo, I still just thought Titan Quest was better. I love the story better. I love the aesthetics better. I like the way that the assets could be seen on enemies as you attack them. So if they were wearing a special chest or vest or whatever, and then it fell, maybe you couldn't use it, but it definitely is what would look like on you. I actually got into a conversation with this guy who does a ton of Titan Quest stuff, and he's very much ready for Titan Quest 2. He's looking forward to that. But I was saying, well, when do you think they might integrate that feature again? And he was like, well, right now I don't get the indication that they're going to. Plus, it's just going to add more dev time, so I'm not looking forward to that. I just want the game to come out. I'm like, but I'd rather have the game, be its spiritual successor and do a lot of things that what we liked about the original one. He's like, well, no, it's just going to be more dev time. They don't need it. We just need it to come out. I'm like, we've been waiting 15 years for part 2. I think we're good. He's like, well, I think that's the wrong, he said, I think that's the wrong attitude to have. I'm like, agree to disagree then. I mean, let's do it right, But anyway, my point here is that I think Titan Quest 2 is on the right path of being very similar to what made the original Titan Quest so good. And the next chapter has come out 2 days ago. I was telling Banana about, and it's just so good. I really think that as a time sink, as a addictive gameplay, the things you find can be different every single playthrough. It's that randomization, so that stuff you get, you can equip your character a certain way. Maybe you want to go more of a spellcaster build, maybe you want to do a combination of the two, maybe you want to just do pure melee. The choice is yours, and really the stuff that you find can help make those decisions for you, because what if you find something really, really good, but it's in a slightly different tree than the one you've been going down? So it really helps you not get bottlenecked to yourself and your way of wanting to do things. It lets you just kind of just play the game and explore it.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you with the ideas of, if you're gonna make a game, invest early to do all the things correctly, to make sure that they're all in the game, so that on release you don't lose the audience who's like, well, this just wasn't done right. This is missing the pieces I enjoyed. This is not what I was looking for, because there's really no way to recover an audience from that. Like that initial impression they get from your experience with the game is going to really shape their opinion of the game more than anything. So if they're missing those those little bits of polish that they really appreciated from the previous entry, they're not coming back. They're just gonna think, oh, this is the game.
Like it's missing or something.
I don't like
incomplete. Yeah.
Yeah, the ship early, ship often sort of approach like software development doesn't apply to gaming. It's way... there's something about the way that we attach ourselves to games and the way that we think about games that we essentially need the full and complete thing in our hands immediately when we start, unless there's something labeled as early access or something like that, which is not a practice I think most of us are generally very fond of, with some exceptions. I would rather they take their time and do it right. I don't want to see them releasing it with promised features coming out later, especially if it's something that could have been in from the beginning. If it's something like Civilization, where we've expanded with a great set of new features as time goes on, as we see new ways to grow the game that we could never have put in the first place, well, that's fair enough. But this, if it's something inherited from the first game, and we're going to put that in later as like DLC or a patch or something, it's bizarre. Get it right the first time. And like you said, you've waited how many years? 15? 16's not that long.
I think also the fact that this game is currently in early access, I've played bits and pieces of it knowing that like when it gets to full release, I'll probably invest way more, but I don't want to burn myself out on it too early. I also think another point to consider with that development practice is, how do you evaluate, because we've talked about the Game Awards before, how you evaluate a game where the initial release is not fundamentally the same game. So if you're adding mechanics and adding features and adding polish to your game, when do we stop considerations and when do we say this is the game we're voting on, this is the game we're nominating for these awards? Because if I have to change my evaluation of a game moments before the awards ceremony, it's probably not going to work out too well.
Well, let me throw this caveat at you. Do you think
caveating a caveat?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Do you think Baldur's Gate 3 should have won Game of the Year? Because it's meeting all those things that you're talking about.
But I also don't think anybody ever considered, the patch 8 update with all the new subclasses as part of the reason it deserved Game of the Year. I think the version of the game we got before that deserved Game of the Year, but if they had promised that before that consideration, I feel like it would have complicated things to be like, well, do I take the promise that they've made and give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to deliver similar quality into consideration when I vote on this? Or do we hold off and say the game's not complete yet, so we'll evaluate it for this award next year?
I misunderstood what you were saying then, because I thought you were saying, does the early access version qualify versus our 1.0? Because I'm like, that's a totally different game at that point. Yeah.
I think the way that has to be done, and I think it was what Banana was implying, was that we're going to start our evaluation for, can this be for Game of the Year, for example, from when version 1.0 drops, from when we say, okay, we're no longer in early access. But let's say version 1.0 drops in March. Well, we've still got 7 months, 8 months to work on the game. If we judge the Game Awards, I don't know when this happens, I'm going to make a date up. Let's say we judge the Game Awards in November. What's being taken into consideration then by the reviewers? Is it the copy that shipped in March? Is it the patch 1.1 that shipped in May? Is it the patch 1.2 that shipped on October 30th? And the answer is going to be, it depends on the individual judge, which is a massive pain in the ass.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is with the ability to patch these games, when is Baldur's Gate 3 Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah.
Like which patch is the game and which patch is like, oh, don't worry about that one. It wasn't finished yet.
Yeah. I wasn't going to vote for it on Game of the Year until photo mode.
Yeah. Until I could get Karlach posing the way I wanted, game was incomplete.
I was wondering if eventually we're going to wander down the path of, at some point, of like the paradox of Theseus is Baldur's Gate. After how many patches is it no longer Baldur's Gate 3? But I think it's walking way too far down that metaphor.
Yeah. When it is Baldur's Gate 4. Yeah. So
Did you just drop the announcement for Baldur's Gate 4 on the Gamers Advocate podcast?
no, but me and Banana have been talking about Icewind Dale, and the more I think about it, the more I like that. I think Larian should do Icewind Dale as their next one. I wouldn't be shocked if it was.
Do everything.
No,
Larian for Death Stranding 3.
Well, they probably do a better job.
No, I think Larian should continue with the Wizards of the Coast properties, and I think they do a really good job with that. I don't want them doing Dark Souls. I don't want them doing.
No, I
Final
mean you.
Fantasy.
I meant Legion. I think what we should do is we should just have like an exchange program where Larian does Death Stranding 3 and Kojima does Baldur's Gate 4. I want that.
Okay.
I want to live in that world just to see what the fuck happens.
Yeah, I could see that. Would the finally?
Actually, that might be secretly amazing.
Yeah, I could see Death Stranding finally making sense.
Square Enix does Red Dead 3.
Oh, it's so good.
CD Projekt Red for Final Fantasy 17.
Who did Dynasty Warriors? Because I want them doing Silent Hill now.
Koei Tecmo?
They're doing Silent Hill now. Done.
Yeah. Can you imagine if what's his name? So the Dutch unlockable hair will be like this spiky hair.
Oh, Red Dead. I
Yeah.
think you just meant some Dutch guy.
Yeah. No, Dutch from Red Dead. Yeah. Now he's gonna have an unlockable feature where he's got spiky hair. Final Fantasy.
All of these ideas actually sound amazing. I would love to live in a world where that was possible.
It's called Kingdom Hearts. Donald
is.
Duck.
It is. Someone get Kojima and Larian's guy in the same elevator, in the same building.
Mr. Larian.
Mr. Larian. Is it Sven something?
Yeah, Sven.
I have no idea.
I think it's Sven. Or Theseus, I can't remember.
I wouldn't be shocked if the next CD Projekt Red the Cyberpunk game had a lot more Kojima elements in it, because Kojima just like went balls to the wall in his references to Cyberpunk. I was shocked. So many.
They might have already done it though, right? They might have already had their sort of like back and forth love fest, because I think he got his stuff patched into Cyberpunk at some point post-release. They got all their love in.
Yeah, he was in the bar, and that's his only cameo. It was just that. They may have done a couple, stuff, right? But not nearly the amount that you have on Death Stranding.
No, there's much more in Death Stranding, that's for sure.
Yeah, you have his Silverhand's arm or his hand, and you have the glasses, you have the cybernetic feature on the face. It's a lot. Yeah. And you have like an email from it's the guy who's at the weather tower, I believe, and he constantly refers to you as a choom. Hey choom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think my weather tower in Cyberpunk, which is why I was going to have to say no idea.
Appreciate everybody being here. We talked.
No, you.
Yeah, no, you.
No, you.
I appreciate you so much. I
appreciate you.
Appreciate you right now.
I appreciate you when I stop it.
We will check you guys later. And if there's a game that you've been secretly addicted to, yeah, then put it in the comments. Like the video if you like the video, and we will check you guys later every Friday. For now,
every Friday.
Podcast enters the chat. We'll check you guys later. Bye-bye.